much. My name is Zach Semke. I'm with Passive House Accelerator, and I want to welcome everyone to our Passive House PREFAB Summit #2. This is a very exciting sequel with brand new guests and manufacturers and insights. So we're really happy that you're here to share all this with us. I wanted to is made possible by our sponsors, generous support from our founding sponsors, our stakeholder partner, and our patron sponsors. So I want to take a moment to thank all of them and to encourage everybody here to patronize these sponsors. They're helping to support our work in driving innovation and sharing innovation and stories. And I particularly want to thank our summit sponsors, the sponsors of this event in particular. So I want to thank Vaproshield and RDH Building Science for their support in making tonight's event possible. And I wanted to thank Aaron Gould for Vaproshield's support and invite Aaron to say a few words about Vaproshield's work. So Aaron, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I'm on the Eastern US here. And although Vaproshield is based out of the Seattle area, a little fishing village called Gig Harbor, assuming everyone can hear me. So if any of you are unfamiliar with us, these photos in the background are just to support, and you can read what some of them say, but there are a few projects and a few background of what we do. We'll be 20 years old next year. We're primarily known for our self-adhered vapor open membrane systems with liquid flashing. We also have a stainless steel flexible peel and stick option. We provide a 20-year material warranty, and we can go up to 12 months of UV exposure during the job site. It's very simple. We have black for open joint rain screens, and then we have orange for everything else. And we have both mechanically attached or self-adhered membrane systems. Again, using either the liquid or peel and stick flashing options that we have. If you take a look at this graphic here, this demonstrates the importance of having higher perms and the drying potential that you can have from that. 1,400 gallons of water versus 58 gallons of water from an only 18 membrane. So the difference between 50 perms and 18 perms is pretty massive over that hour illustration there that was just shown. We can go either over or under exterior CI or both, as some of the projects you will see here. And then we pay a lot of attention to detailing because obviously interfaces are where leaks happen. Here's an E331 test in our lab where we're evaluating fastener penetrations, which we continually do. This was, we've been around the block. We've experienced a lot of large projects like Hudson Yards here in New York, a lot of mass timber. We've stayed at the forefront of that. We have an ideal solution for mass timber and panelized construction. And meant to actually have a photo of a current Passive House mass timber project we're working on. It's an 8-story in New York right now. But this is one that was recent, and I put another, you can put a link up to this in the chat if you like, and some of you were on this, the multifamily New Jersey project, the Condela Lofts, that was highlighted here a couple weeks ago. Here's a nice panelized project in Chicago that I used to be able to see from the flight path flying into O'Hare. This one's up in Michigan. It was 250,000 square feet of panelization. And so this was the largest rough opening I ever experienced. It was a 1/4 mile of flashing. I thought I'd put that up just for fun to show some of the different things. We do free training. This was a union training where we had close to 70 people show up. And we're here to help you scale your panelization and passive house efforts. Here's a nice project in Seattle. We have a lot of details and technical helps at Vaproshield.com. We provide transparency, and I'm our sustainability manager and heading that up. Now we'd like to turn it over to everyone else and encourage you to visit us online and hit me up in the chat here for any questions that you might have. We look forward to the rest of the event.
Thank you, Erin. So I want to just, I mentioned Mary and her role in curating and organizing this event. I want to thank Mary James. You may know her for her work with Passive House Buildings Magazine. She's been the editor of that magazine for years now, and she's now a part of the Passive House Accelerator team. So we're very happy that Mary is here to play a number of roles in tonight's event. So Mary, I know you had a couple of words you wanted to share.
Hi, I just want to say hi and thank you to everybody, particularly the 10 wonderful speakers we have tonight, and of course the fabulous audience. And I also want to remind everyone that there's going to be a follow-up prefab publication coming out in early 2021 with all these companies and more, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And I want to introduce our tonight's moderator, Sean St. Amour. I think most of you know him already, but in case you don't, he's a product consultant with 475 High Performance Building Supply for Western Canada. After graduating from UBC with a degree in wood products processing, he has been involved in various areas of construction, including prefab, multifamily construction, and even operating his own business. He's been involved with our happy hour and our construction tech events. If Sean isn't talking about Passive House, a rare event, he's playing Lego with his daughters or working on his hubby-do list. So take it away, Sean.
My passion is sustainable prefab passive homes, and so I'm very excited to hear what the panel has to say today. Before we dive into the presentation, I just want to take a second and ask you all to consider prefab in your 2021 plans. I hope that you will reach out to either the 6 companies we had on our first summit or the ones we're featuring tonight. I hope that you don't see prefab as a competitor, but as a collaborator to your process, just as you might see an electrician, a plumber, or a tile setter as part of your family. For the builders out there, prefab is here to assist you as you handle a shortage of skilled tradespeople or the adoption of high performance standards. As Ted Benson said a few months ago on the BS and Beer show, prefab is not taking away the craft of how we build homes, but is only going to enhance it. After the unprecedented year of 2020, I also hope that in 2021, we start to celebrate more. How many of you do a rooftop party just like how the timber framers used to do for when they were raising their structures? Let's go back to celebrating the craft and how we enjoyed it so much. So if you're a designer or a builder or somewhere supporting the construction industry, let's celebrate more in 2021. So let's get started by celebrating you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Cheers to the presenters and cheers to you. So I hope tomorrow you'll make a call to one of these talented companies, connect with them, start to build a relationship with them so we can grow the Passive House prefab pie and all of our slices can grow collectively. So on that note, let's get into the nuts and bolts of how these prefabricated companies manufacture the components, how they get installed, and how these companies also have different business models. Yet these are all green jobs manufacturing here in North America, and I know that's a positive trend. So to kick things off, let me introduce Ilka Cassidy from Holtz Rum Systems.
Yeah, we are really happy to be here. And I would like to introduce our team first. So there's Steve Hessler. He has hands-on experience as a timber framer and high-performance builder. And he has worked in the panelized construction field for 20 plus years as a structural designer and CNC programmer. Foremost, he is our CAD work modeling Jedi and the brains behind 2D and 3D content integration and development of our user interface between us, the client, and the factory. And then there's David Hessler, his brother. He is a computer programmer. He founded 3 software development companies and was a director of software development at Holzraum Systems. He is a biologist, has managed the construction of an eco-village and of the grid house, and he is our voice of reason because he thinks in data. And I am Ilka Cassidy. I have an architecture degree from Germany, and I am also the co-founder of C2 Architecture. And I have been a Passive House consultant since 2013. My focus is on energy modeling and Passive House detailing, but I can also call myself a fabrication consultant and virtual builder by now. Holtz Rum System is not a manufacturer like most of the companies represented here tonight. We are actually a design and consulting partnership connecting builders and architects with low carbon Passive House design and offsite manufacturing. We formed a partnership with Blueprint Robotics in Baltimore and became their design and communication interface for single family projects. We also partnered with Stolze Timber Systems in Whitefish, Montana. And we're working on prototyping CLT construction for high performance development projects, as well as bringing CLT options to the East Coast. So our goal is to expand our efforts in connecting more capable factories with Passive House projects, finding the right fit for each project based on factory and site distance, project site, and manufacturing time slot. Our single integrated manufacturing model, our SIM, is a parts-based model for the entire building, which connects typically kind of siloed building perspectives into a holistic, factory-specific, high-fidelity model that is then used to generate machine files, shop drawings, and installation instructions. I believe that offsite construction and virtual building flips the construction industry on its head and levels the playing field for women as powerful voices in design and construction. And I really want to encourage women to explore all these new opportunities. And with that, I'm going to let Bill Grothman from Blueprint Robotics talk about their multifamily approach, Passive House approach. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? So good. Thank you, Ilka, Holtz Rum System, and Passive House PREFAB Summit for allowing us to join. My name is Bill Grothman with Blueprint Robotics. My main focus of Blueprint Robotics is sales and business development. I'm joined today on the Zoom with Martin Lettenmeyer, one of my colleagues. Martin's a critical member of our Blueprint team, a native German who brings deep practical knowledge of both Passive House and just about every aspect of our type of offsite construction. He's going to be available for the Q&A. Holtz Rum Systems, the focus today, but I'm just going to share a little bit about a couple quick notes about Blueprint, which is the factory that you saw in the video Ilka showed. About 6 years ago, we started our journey as a fresh startup. We built a 200,000 square foot facility in Baltimore, Maryland, filled it with Weinman machines. We fabricate and ship in a panelized format, building the wood frame, sheathed with the WRB, installing windows in our factory. We also deliver a prefabricated MEP solution that we complete turnkey in the field. Not necessarily always how we approach single family, but that is our multifamily approach. Holzraum System has been a great partner, utilizing us to successfully execute Passive House custom homes. Our main focus, however, is the multifamily market. Particularly, Passive House multifamily is at the top of the list of our targets. The Passive House projects really allow us to show off our ability to precisely fabricate Passive House details, which were resolved in our BIM process. We're looking forward to continued success with Holtz Rum System and our multifamily Passive House projects that we have in pre-construction and under contract currently. Probably our largest that we have right now of note is about 115 unit project in Washington, D.C. with Somerset Development and Whiting Turner, which again will be Passive House certified. That will start construction in 2021. So I appreciate you having us again and listening, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys soon. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ilka. Thanks, Bill. Our second speaker is Alan Gibson from GoLogic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alan Gibson. I'm owner of GeoLogic LLC. We're a 25-person design build company based in Maine. Next slide, please. I'm going to go pretty quick, Zach. I don't have much time. So we've been around for a while. This is our first house, the Go Home, back in 2010. That was Passive House certified. And we started our business at that time and basically founded it on doing all Passive House all the time. Our build territory is the Northeast US. We are general contractors. So in sort of Southern Maine, we will general contract projects. Outside of that area, we will design and then deliver a shell package for others to finish. Our mission is to design and build healthy, comfortable, low carbon homes that are affordable to a wide segment of the population. Next, please. I'm not going to claim that we're an affordable home builder. We do a mix of projects. We do some higher end custom homes. We've done some institutional work, but our bread and butter is single family homes. Next, please. And to try to, tap some of that, crack some of the affordability nut for Passive House, we developed the Go Home, which is a series of pre-designed homes. Next, please. With models ranging from 600 to 2,500 square feet. We've built most of these multiple times. The design process is much more streamlined because they're pre-designed, and we allow some customizations, but it allows the whole process to be more streamlined and therefore less expensive. Next, please. So here's a shot of our crew in our facility. We're watching a slideshow about Swedish prefabrication. We draw a lot of inspiration and information from them. We've been panelizing in earnest for about 3 years now and really trying to go up that learning curve and figure out how to do it kind of from scratch while taking our experience being site builders into the shop. Next, please. My crew has really been figuring this out. Here's our space. It is not high tech. We have built it pretty organically for pretty low investment. We have some lifting equipment. We have an automated saw stop. We have a lull and a little overhead gantry. That's about it. So really, no, this is something that anybody could start doing. And I encourage that because I think the benefits are so great. Next slide, please. And just, taking it from outside to inside, there are just great benefits. You're building not in the mud, in the rain. Therefore, you can concentrate better on what you're doing. We have higher quality product. The thing about panelization that's different is that you have to do most of your thinking before you cut your first stick, right? So there's a lot more pre-planning, and the shop drawing process is really important. And that's another thing that we have been working out, going from the architecture to 3D modeling and then shop drawings. Next, please. We put absolutely as much as we can in the panel in the shop to make it a value-added product. We install windows and doors. We air seal them, flash, and put trim on them. We add a lot of exterior insulation. Next, please. Here's a typical build. This was out of state, so local GC did the foundation. We came in with wall panels, floor panels, roof structure. We made an airtight, watertight shell, and then pass it on to the local builder who did the exterior finishes. Next, please. Here's our typical wall. It's a 2x8 stud wall with cellulose. There's a sheathing layer, that's the airtight layer. This is showing mineral wool insulation in the drawing. We've actually shifted away from that. Now we use rigid wood fiber with a WRB over that, and then a strapping layer. Next, please, about an R50 wall. Here it is in the flesh. We use gaskets to join the panels. When we're done with our shell installation, we verify airtightness with a blower door test. We meet the Passive House standard. You know, this is a fairly complicated thing. It's got a lot of layers, and it's all got to be right, or you're gonna have a lot of mess on site. So that's really key to doing it successfully. Next slide. This particular project had a second exterior skin because it was getting cedar shingle siding. And this is a installation we did on a remote island in Maine. Next, please. Where the logistics were a nightmare, but the crew did a great job getting the panels in there and then flying them in to install them. Next, please. And the one interesting thing about this project, you can see we put in as many windows as we could into panels, but there's some big expanses of glass that we couldn't build, you know, they were too big to put in a panel. So we're happy to do that, it's fine, but just you should understand that it's going to take more time and therefore be more expensive when you can't do everything in a panel. Next slide. The last thing I just wanted to mention is panelized deep energy retrofits, where this is something we want to get into. We did a feasibility study for this building. It's a low-income housing triple-decker apartment building in Lewiston, Maine. Next, please. And we developed a potential wall panel that could skin the building and bring it to Passive House standard. And we hope to do this project and more of these in the future, knowing that this is like there's huge need for this. So that's my time.
Excellent. And I love the detail of the connection process there, Alan. And again, even the scale of the problem. We might come back to that in the question period. So thank you very much.
Sure.
And Thomas, Stich from Stich Consulting and Design, you are up next.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. So my name is Thomas Stich. I'm based in Invermere, BC, Canada. And I'm probably not a typical prefab builder because we don't build, we plan design, basically like Ilka. We use 3D CAD/CAM Dietrich software. I'm probably here because we pushed the limits a little bit with our own Passive House that we built this year. I'm saying pushing the limits because we let it produce or manufacture in Europe. But a little bit to myself. So I'm a carpenter and grew up in Germany and worked in Slovenia, Sweden, and Germany. Graduated from university in wood engineering, so I'm a structural engineer for specialized on wood. And since 2009, I'm a certified Passive House designer. And since 2013, we are accredited Passive House course provider as well. So we offer courses in Calgary, basically, and BC in Vermont. We specialized over the years on CLT. Zach, maybe you can put up the first picture. So I haven't really prepared a slideshow, so I will show pictures from our own Passive House. Zach, okay, thanks. Yeah, so we specialized in the last years on CLT that we use as a structure and finish on the inside. And we focus on the structural interior insulated airtight shell. So we provide the structure, CLT and glue lamp usually. We use solid wood fiberboard as insulation. And we have 2 window suppliers from Europe that we use and supply windows. Usually we ship everything separately in containers. As I said, with our own house that we built this year, or started pretty much 1 year ago, 10th of December, the first container showed up. We pushed the limits, we planned everything, and the windows were built in, insulation was on, and siding was on. So on the right-hand side, you can see a floor panel. So our limitation was basically container size, 40 feet, and high cube, almost 9 feet and a little bit high. One wall was one panel, including siding and insulation and windows built in. Except two walls that were longer than 40 feet, so we had to put a joint in there. On the left-hand side, you can see the south side of our house. We have exterior shading, motorized, and floor-to-ceiling windows. On the right-hand side, as I said, you can see the floor panel, and on the right-hand side, the container. So we unloaded and installed right out of the container. And it took us 5 days to lock up. Again, it was December. It started snowing and got pretty cold, so could have gone a little bit faster. Next picture, please, Zach. So that's the inside, almost finished. As you can see, usually we focus on the exterior shell. In our house, we used CLT as interior walls as well. So we never touched it again. We assembled it and never touched it again. So now no drywalling, no mudding, no painting. And as I said, CLT, biggest advantage, I think, it's your structure, it's your finish, it's your vapor retarder, it's your airtight layer, and you don't have to touch it anymore if you don't want to. And the structure, pretty simple. You can see the big drop beam in the middle. So there are two posts, and it rests basically on two posts and the exterior walls. Next picture. Yeah, that's another pic from the inside. As I said, the wall that you see in the back is the east wall. So the window was built in, which you will see soon on a little time lapse. Window was built in, insulation was on. Okay, thank you. This is Pennsylvania, where I'm originally from and where I have good friends that are carpenters and that have a shop. So I went over there last October and we loaded 4 containers in 2 days, basically, or 3 days. Again, here you can see the inside of one wall. As I said, CLT, solid wood fiberboard, strapping, and wooden siding in this case. Gaskets were on and we attached the corners and assembled it with dovetail connectors. Type Recon. It's a rich detail, so we used the trailer box gaskets as well. And I have to say, everything fit. We didn't cut one piece on site. Again, 5 days to lock up. Maybe next slide. So this is the shop in Europe, in Slovenia, with all the walls lined up. And you can see the siding. It's a pre-stained gray siding. Solid wood fiberboard and strapping. Next slide. So that's a time from our side. As I said, 10th of December in the Rocky Mountains, not the best time to assemble a house. We were 2 months late, I have to say. This is why we ended up in December. But again, 5 days, we worked long days. And it paid off. So all the windows and doors were built in except the floor to ceiling was on the south side because obviously there was no wall to build them in. Yeah, that's one. That's the east side, upper floor east side wall. yeah, windows built in, siding on. The only thing we had to do later was attach the joints, the siding, which was delivered with the package. Unfortunately, we didn't, or unfortunately, we didn't assemble the prefabricated roof panels just because of size and volume. We had cantilevered glulam rafters. So this is how it looked like for another month, unfortunately, on the roof before we put down the solid wood fiberboard insulation and the roofing. Yeah, I think that was the last picture. Is there one more, Zach? No.
Nope, that was the last one.
Yeah, so
Thank you, Tomaz.
we got the, again, we started 10th of December and we moved in May. We are pretty much done. Everything works, except, as you can imagine, baseboards and the huge. But everything works and we are pretty happy. So we're hitting the minus 15 degrees now and it's good. So again, we don't manufacture anything. We use different suppliers from Europe for CLT so far. I hope there will be more suppliers in North America that we can use. Other than that, we plan design to a high level and we can push the limits with windows built in, siding on, insulation on, if the clients want to. That's from me. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thanks, Thomas. Beautiful stuff. Love the detail, the gaskets, and even again the CLT, how tight it was there. That's fantastic stuff. So
Thanks.
I'm sure there'll be some more questions for you afterwards. I saw them in the chat building up. So now we're off to Build Smart with Paul Grahovac. Paul, your turn.
Yes, I believe Mary had a video to play. There it is.
At BuildSmart, we're not in business to replace the local design professional or builders or developers that are still out there practicing their trades. We want to be a tool that helps them deliver on the promise of improved energy efficiency, no matter what climate zone they're in or what performance thresholds they aspire to.
Hey, listen, the way we are building right now with the Build Smart system is beautiful. I don't think we will ever consider any other way of building. The way it goes up, the way it goes together, the way it's tight, the energy qualities of it, it's the best system I've ever seen in my life. Right.
A lot of trainees that had never touched construction before, and there were things that we had to do from the grading and everything, making sure that it's level because of the components and the way it comes together like a big jigsaw puzzle. You are able to take less skilled individuals, bring them to the site, show them what needs to be done, and the repetitious of doing it one after another, you can assemble a larger project with less difficulty than you would if you were doing full stick built in conventional construction.
Paul, did you have a few more things to say about your amazing company?
Yeah, last time, Sean, you mentioned that point of Passive House Accelerator is to make the economic pie larger for all of us. And I have some information that should be able to show on the screen, but it's not coming through, so I'll just talk through it. Basically, I've given this paper at about a dozen conferences across the U.S. and maybe 2 or 3 times that for AIA presentations. I'll supply anybody who wants a copy of it. Basically, it's a financial analysis for prefabrication and multifamily. And applicable to anybody doing prefabrication, multifamily, passive house. And essentially, you end up at the end of the process, this is all backed up with articles and such, I didn't make it up, basically showing that you're spending 4.8% less for a passive house apartment building prefabricated than if you stick built it to code, and you're making 60% more cash flow on the operation of the building. So I'll just leave it at that. Anybody want a copy of the paper, just let me know.
Great, Paul. Thanks for the info. We'll maybe again come back in the question period for the details, but again, appreciate that insight. And going to move along to Eddie Dillman from Be Public.
Hey, thanks. So I'm gonna thank everybody for being here. Another amazing event at the Accelerator. Thank you to Mary and Zach and Sean. I am Edie Dillman. I am one of the co-founders of Be Public Prefab. Next slide, please. So we incorporated in 2019, and center to this company coming into the market was Passive House as our path forward. Next slide, please. Be Public is a public benefit corporation addressing the housing need, energy consumption, environmental impact of construction with a dedication to building science. Our wall, roof, and floor panels offer building envelopes for backyard studios all the way to low-rise multifamily developments. Currently, we have 49 interchangeable components in a range of R values, fully insulated, vapor open, airtight to serve projects from climate zones 2 through 8. Next slide, please. So this is going to be a brief presentation just about sort of our fundamental beliefs and what we're working on in this new venture. So we're all about removing barriers or at least limiting them to making great decisions and moving towards high performance buildings. So next slide, if you would. A perfect example of this is contractors. They're our heroes. We are here supporting local builders to build faster, to increase finished projects every year, and a simplified path to performance. So working with builders in partnership with either our home plans, our licensed home plans, or the plans that they have or their clients have. Next slide, please. We're working to decrease barriers in the design exploration. Next slide. We provide tools for architects and designers to play with Be Public components from day one. So offering related application details and options to allow for more open exploration for all size projects. And what does that mean? It means we support and we collaborate with professionals with ongoing envelope modeling and technical assistance from schematic design all the way through a project. Next slide. Addressing barriers in equal access. Next slide, would you? So this is the big picture issue, and this is a future issue, and I hope everyone on the call and certainly everyone presenting is working on these issues. This is a movement, and we are just at the beginning of it in the US and North America. And we believe that homeowners at all income levels should have the ability to make choices for building resilience. Next slide. Reducing barriers around cost. Cost predictability is really something that we are focused on. Sorry, next slide. We are a component-based company. We are a component-based pricing model. So it is for iterative design and decision-making. We're estimating early, and I hate to say it to my team, early and often through the planning process and all the way through the development of a project. So tools for communicating to the client, to the builder, to partners around high performance. And you can see in this example, models of projects under design development, and these go along with our estimates so that there's always a visual and an understanding of what that building envelope is when we provide costs. Next slide, please. We're also looking at the hidden savings and efficiencies in designing with standardized panels. You can see with our model on the right-hand side, our flat roof panels at that 10-foot interior ceiling height may not be for every project, but it clearly offers a faster, efficient path for many projects. Next slide, please. So eliminating barriers to carbon savings or around our carbon footprint. Next slide. Passive House gives us a path to operational carbon savings, but we must also address the embodied carbon as well. And we do so by offering carbon sequestering assemblies. This graph is from a multifamily development we're working on now, and it really outlines the balance when we both pair carbon sequestering and operational carbon footprint. Next slide, and our last point about barriers, although there are many more that we're addressing at Be Public, the ones we've talked about, what does it mean when we remove barriers? It means that we are a positive disruption in the marketplace. And last slide. So Be Public, we have standardized a predictable Lego-like system. We also license our beautiful home plans. We design and sell our panelized building envelopes. And importantly, we support architects, designers, builders, and developers to work with our panels and prioritize better buildings and decision-making. So we work in very creative ways to remove these barriers. And we have built this company to put quality and craftsmanship at the forefront and predictability of comfort, costs, and carbon savings available to the public. Thank you so much. I look forward to Q&A afterwards.
Thanks, Eddie. And I saw that someone post a January 12th webinar that we'll make sure we also help out and promote for you as well. So great stuff. Now moving along to David Arnett from Tag Panels.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm David, one of the co-founders of Tag Panels. We're based in Squamish. I'm also an architect and a passive house designer, owner of Stark Architecture. Next slide. Yeah, so Tag Panels, similar to some of the other panelists here, they're prefabricated sustainable building panels, enabling clients to meet the high performance building goals. Our kind of secret sauce, as we like to call it, is that we're co-founded by an architect, an engineer, and a contractor. Next slide. The build up, we've created a typical wall assembly. It's a bit of a misnomer because we customize them to each job. But we're from the inside out, we're going for OSB or plywood as our air barrier and vapor retarder, blown silos for a knoff for the timber stud cavity, wood fiber to the outside, a high performance WRB, and then the strapping is shipped with the strapping on top. Next slide. We also do alternative build-ups. This was a Larson Truss system project that we did. We wouldn't, you know, we've had some experience, but we really believe the 2x stud wall is the best for transport and simplicity and cost. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a little shot of our current operation. We started in a 3,000 square foot shop and we outgrew that within the first project. This is a 10,000 square foot shop. We've got a 3-ton gantry crane that runs 70 feet along the length of the shop. We have 2 separate tables. We can run 2 jobs at the same time, or more often than not, one twice as fast. And then we actually bring in the semi trucks back into the space, and the piles of panels are loaded onto the trucks in reverse order, obviously, and then shipped out as and when needed. We have a Crendel insulating blowing machine. We've got a total of 13 staff at the moment, designers, production, and then an install crew. And then we have an additional 15,000 square foot shop coming online this summer. Next. Yeah, just some images of the guys installing. You know, we're really big into the care and the precision, and it really helps when they're in a dry shop, which I'm sure you guys are all up to speed on now. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, and our process, similar to others, we go through the needs first. So those are typically from the architect or a thermal model to work out our values and sort of what we need for the envelope. We then move into the modeling stage, which is we use CADWorks software. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks. We then do which take about a week. Quite troublesome getting architects and engineers to actually fully coordinate everything. They say they do, but they don't, and I can attest to that. Then we go into fabrication. So we're approximately 20 days for a 4,000 square foot kind of custom home. And then installation varies between 10 and 20 days, depending on the complexity. Next slide. Materials, we're big into carbon sequestering as well. So we've tried to build the panels so that they have the wood fiber and the cellulose. We're experimenting with NOF recycled glass. It's not as good carbon sequestering, but it's also lighter because we're experiencing some of these panels are getting really, really heavy when we're lifting them because we're trying to shoot for the larger panels. Next slide. Air barriers, similar to some of the other panels here, we're kind of going for a multi-air barrier approach, but our primary air barrier is the tape OSB or plywood to the interior. But the more the merrier when it comes to air barriers and tightness. Next slide. And then vapor diffusion, which was touched on before. So these are vapor open, they're breathable. Be interesting to talk afterwards, but we have had problems with local authorities trying to get their heads around vapor open and certain code requirements requiring specific perm ratings and materials, and so I'd be interested to see what other problems people have run into there, but we're facing some of those. Next slide. And I just got a couple of projects. So this one's currently being built in Worcester at the moment. It's a 6,500 square foot house. We did the walls, floors, and the roofs here. It's all sloped roofs with sloped top walls. Lots of steel in here, so quite a tricky build. But this one has to be a step 4 house. Next slide. This one's in Worcester again. You can see at the top of the screen, there's the CADWorks model and some various photos of the construction, and then a kind of final lock-up one on the top left. What was interesting was this was from start to finish a 19-day install, including this steel, and there was 5 neighbors here, and not a single one of them managed to finish their timber framing before we got the roof on. So it really shows you the kind of speed and benefit there. Last slide. And this is a house in Toole, 4,000 square foot, very tricky site right by the ocean. Yeah, this was primarily chosen because of the limited local trades. We teamed up with some local guys, but they just didn't have the volume of people to build a house this size, so the panels made a lot of sense. And then last slide, promise. This one's in Pemberton. So this is a Larson truss system, 3,000 square feet. We did all the glue lam work and really a race against time to get the roof on before the snow. But again, this was sort of like 15 days from sill plates to the final roof going on. Yeah, and upcoming, we've got the multifamily area is a big new market for us. We're seeing lots of people reaching out with 100, 150 unit multifamilies, and custom homes are great, but they come with their own quirks. And I think that the real power is going to be in these multifamilies doing those sorts of things. Yeah, I'm happy to jump in questions on architectural or technical at the end. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, David. And again, we can dive into some specific details on that Whistler project tomorrow on the Passive House Accelerator Construction Tech event. So thanks, David, for letting me pull your arm to come back again tomorrow. So thanks for that. And now we're off to Graham Finch.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everyone. So I'll just jump in here. Want me to share that or? Yeah, perfect. All right. I'm going to finish things off here by getting the group maybe to think ahead in what's coming next. We've had a lot of great presentations, a lot of talk about multifamily and what that means. And I'm going to talk about high-rise buildings. Okay, next slide. So we have a number of unique things coming together, especially on the West Coast. This has been really exciting for the last number of years. It's kept me very busy during COVID. I should mention that RDH isn't a panelized wall or facade producer. We work with a lot of companies to help them, but we aren't actually producing these ourselves. So we're going to share today is stuff we've done with others. But what's really exciting is we're seeing a whole bunch of things come together, especially for larger buildings. Next. First is height, right? If you're looking at tall buildings and getting to access to these buildings, you often don't have scaffolding. So you think of panels flying in, basically clicking into place and sealing into place. So it's developing systems and seals and joints in particular that allow you to do that without any access for tapes or sealant from the outside, and trying to move all the control layers to the inside and trying to do that with structural connections. From a practicality standpoint, we're seeing this to be necessary, especially in larger markets, places like the Bay Area. It's just too expensive to build anything, as many people can probably attest there, and a lot of other cities. So we're looking at prefab to solve or at least provide some labor cost certainty. And the last is environmental. We're seeing more and more levels of insulation, increased levels of air tightness, and low carbon, which is putting a lot of things in the same basket. And what it is, it's pushing us to be more creative to get some control on the systems, but also, it's a lot easier to install, 10 inches of insulation on the ground indoors than it is on the side of a 30-story high-rise. Next. The other catalyst we're seeing right now is mass timber, and mass timber is unique that it's driving this even further. So when we're talking about doing prefabrication for high rises before, it was becoming a given. It isn't given in many markets, but when you look at a mass timber building, which is driving a lot of this lately, it has to go fast for moisture protection, and also just the speed of the structure is quite quick, so you want to keep up with it. And so that's what's driving a lot of this change recently. Next. Two things to consider, existing systems, we have small panels, like things like window wall and small precasts that can be installed from small cranes. Things like curtain wall would be installed like this with small cranes off the slab edge of the building. Next. So very large panel systems. And so this is where a lot of the development is going with panel systems, is we actually have walls with the windows integrated. Next. There's a number of existing solutions already. This isn't new. Prefabrication has been around for a long time. We can prefabricate out of concrete. We can do it out of steel studs. We can do it out of curtain wall. And when we talk about passive house, it means pushing the envelope, so to speak, in terms of thermal performance. So it means thicker amounts of insulation, more exterior insulation with steel, thicker sandwich panels or more insulation in concrete, and higher performance curtain wall systems. Next. There's a huge opportunity. We have a number of projects, passive house projects in the city of Vancouver underway. And the only way they're going to be able to be built cost effectively is incorporating a fair amount of prefabrication. So, right off the bat, looking at steel framed, HSS frames with pre-installed windows, all exterior insulation to control thermal bridging. And then it's all about how you connect these together and what that looks like when it's connected. So doing very complicated passive house projects like the one on the left here. Next. And where we're going next is actually into mass timber facades. There's been a lot of interest in bringing wood into larger and taller buildings with mass timber. And so we see mass timber structures going up all over the place. And what we're really pushing on the enclosure side is how we do the facade systems out of mass timber. And we're looking at a couple of different approaches, whether it be a hung panel, like we see on the illustration here, which is essentially what we call curtain wood, which is like curtain wall, but hung wood. So very thin wood panels, whatever it's CLT or mass plywood panel or other components, or load bearing. And one of the things, when you look at hung systems, they're not part of the load bearing structure, but they're purely a facade element. Next. And the way these systems are working, very similar to a lot of the technology we use in steel stud and precast is, your wood panel, whether it be CLT or plywood or whatever component, large and strong, in factory installed air water-resistant barriers, typically vapor permeable membranes, whether it be sheet applied or fluid applied. Windows installed to meet the specs, exterior insulation, so you can leave the wood exposed on the inside, but also for durability. And then your cladding and your finishes and everything's on site. And all the trickery comes into the joints and details. Next. There were some build slides there, but Catalyst in Spokane by Katera, designed by Michael Green, was one of the first larger examples of this in the US. 2-story tall, 30 foot tall by about 8-foot panels that came together on site. The cladding and windows weren't pre-installed because the cladding was terracotta and the windows were too large to lay down flat and then tilt up. But it's the first example of that there. Next. And where we're going next, and I'll talk a bit about this project. Canada's Earth Tower project is a proposed 30 to 40 story passive house mass timber project in Vancouver, British Columbia. And the competition part of this project was for teams across Canada and the US, and I reached out to many people out here on the call, and we probably talked a few times. The idea was we needed a team to develop a mass timber facade for this building, for this project, and would meet a passive house design spec for thermal insulation, air tightness, be cost effective, meet all the fire requirements, performance requirements for a high rise. We had 6 teams from across Canada and the US enter the competition, 6 very strong, concepts. 3 of those concepts went to the next phase, sort of a semi, so the three sort of winning teams. And actually, in my eye, all 3 were completely viable options. We have mass timber with exterior insulation, partially exposed or fully exposed wood on the inside, windows pre-installed. Each of the teams had slightly different connection and details, but essentially that proved out that this could be done. And we have tons of projects we're actually looking at right now before this one where we now have options. So we actually now have high-rise mass timber facade systems that are available in North America. And the three winning teams were Katera, Element 5, and Sidewalk Labs. And we'll be going forward next with the next phase here. And then this project will be eventually built with one of those systems here. So next. So that's it. But there's a big horizon ahead, big buildings, and a whole other thing to think about here.
Excellent. Thanks, Graham. I think we got Travis. Travis, are you there? Perfect. There we are, Travis. Great.
Okay.
Let's get it. You can go ahead and introduce yourself. I think Zach's going to try to queue up your slides, but say hello.
Right. Yep.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I'm sorry. I want to apologize. I guess I didn't realize you maybe tried to get me up earlier. Yeah, my name is Travis Toole. I'm a builder. I'm in Western Massachusetts in the Northeast US. And studied net zero design, and recently partnered with Peter Jensen. We formed a relatively new company here called Build with Nature, and we are representing the Ilka Cassidy system. So if you want to go ahead and play that video, Zach will follow up with more on that after.
Often underestimated, straw hides a real treasure. Its unique cellular structure, full of tiny air pockets, makes it a great insulation material. Straw has been used in construction for millennia, but can it meet the high requirements of modern construction? Our wall panels consist of 98% wood and straw in their natural state. We want to show how well-known natural materials can constitute the building blocks of any sustainable construction. The wooden frame provides structural support for buildings up to 6 stories high. The panels are filled with straw at very high pressure. This helps achieve excellent insulation properties. Together with a wood fibre layer, an airtight membrane and an interior clay plaster, the system meets the strict requirements of the Passive House standard. The system is airtight but vapor permeable. It allows excess humidity to escape, and with no thermal bridges, it leaves no space for drafts or mold that is often present in modern sealed buildings. To accommodate any type of building design, the panels are made to measure for every project. With superior indoor air quality and a positive climate impact, Cocon provides a healthy and sustainable alternative to conventional construction.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we are, let's see, I guess we'll start with a little bit about the background. So after 15 years of passionately seeking and implementing the most sustainable building practices in various climates around the world, Peter Jensen, the director of our company, Build with Nature, has settled in upstate New York. But coming to the Catskill region is not an end to his journey, but a new beginning. And he's originally from Denmark, but he's bringing big plans with his vision and hard-earned expertise to create new opportunities for the U.S. market. Since reaching out to his colleagues and old friends at the Slovakian manufacturing company, Ilka over a year ago, Jensen to offer their straw-based panels as a prefabricated option for builders and designers across the US and Canada. The Ilka product and building system has been based on rigorous testing, certifications, and hundreds of quality builds in 21 countries, and has grown through renown throughout the world since 2010. Until in the fall of 2019, getting right to work on our mission. Build with Nature designed and built the first Ilka prefab building in the United States. It was a small 300 square foot house set up as a case study and spec home for sale. This is as a tangible domestic example of the innovative method. And under the leadership of Jensen, the project was organized as a cooperative effort of 18 different companies and documented on the Discovery Channel feature, Living Off the Grid, which you can find on our homepage, buildwithnature.us. Thanks to its unique structure, or I guess you could just switch the slide there for me, Zach. Thanks to this unique structure, straw has been used in construction for thousands of years. Combined with modern technology, straw allows us to build sustainable, passive, energy-efficient buildings. Ilka panels are made of 98% natural renewable materials, making them as close to nature as possible. The best comfort and indoor climate can now be easily achieved through a combination of straw and clay. Governments around the world have decided to achieve a carbon zero economy by 2050. And we are helping to make that a reality today by applying the absolute highest standards of passive house design with renewable materials. With 10% of the straw grown in the US each year, we could build 1.3 million homes and store a vast amount of CO2 rather than release it to the atmosphere. So if you could switch that one more time, Zach. So just a little bit more about the panels. This is really adaptable to any size. They're customizable dimensions down to a millimeter. It's very simple and quick assembly using basically just a screw gun. They're very flat and homogeneous surfaces. A panel, which is standard, just under 16 inches thick, gives you an R38.3. With the wood fiber layer that we typically use, a 2 1/4 or 2 3/8 inch wood fiber layer, that brings it to an R47. As I said, the panels are highly CO2 positive, so we can justify for a certain period of time transporting them across the ocean because they're currently manufactured in Europe. Because we've done some studies, and you'd need to truck over 3,730 miles to achieve a negative CO2 output. That's about 165 pounds of CO2 sequestered per square meter in the panel, or 8 tons in an average house. So our goal is to bring these into the mainstream and have it as a viable option for designers and builders across the states, and eventually move toward manufacturing. It's a cradle-to-cradle certified product, a Passive House certified component, fire resisting, tested, seismic tested. And yeah, I guess if you want to switch that one more time. So I think the final builder team designers could basically become a prefab company using this system today. As long as you can get access to a barn or a warehouse, you can put these panels together with siding on, windows on, and have a very high quality Passive House ready prefab system.
Great. Thanks, Travis. Glad you got an opportunity to talk about your stuff. And again, thanks for letting us use your some of your pictures for our promo material. So appreciate that. Okay, we're going to get into the question period. We've got a whole bunch queued up. Thank you to the presenters and to our sponsors. And as Mark said, we need to, to celebrate more. So sure, let's cheers, everybody. Hopefully you guys are drinking something fancier than water, but it is what it is. The first person to kick off the question period is Jeff. Jeff, you ready?
Yeah, sure am. So this is a question for it's open to all the prefab manufacturers. One of the things I've noticed is that all of your factories are set up to build flat, and then you tilt stuff up and like do stuff with it. Why is everything built flat?
Now, I appreciate you leaving it open to everybody. Why don't we go to Paul on that one? Because he's doing more multifamily. So we'll get Paul to start with that one, and then we'll see who else wants to jump in. Paul, I'm putting you on the spot.
All right. Well, he raises a good question, and it's largely for us, it's an ergonomics question. And so we keep devising all these different ways to get it vertical as fast as we can or as easily as we can. But he's absolutely right. But it's not trivial to avoid it.
Yeah, I'd add to that also, there's the issue of gravity, that when you're working with these materials and you're layering them, you have gravity working to your benefit when you're horizontal. So you basically have your stud layer in our case, and you set OSB on that. You don't have to index it, you don't have to hold it in place. Gravity holds it in place while you nail it, and so on with the additional layers. So I mean, there's ergonomics, and a lot of the machinery is just built that way to begin with.
Okay, so it's kind of a limitation of the machinery that's available to you guys to use.
Yeah, that's why we've devised some of our own to get vertical.
Well, it seems vertical would be better for a number. I mean, I understand the fight against gravity. Gravity tends to define a lot that we deal with, but the space savings, the ability to add fenestration. I mean, with glass, if it's vertical, it's actually the most stable. It just seems there are a tremendous amount of benefits. And
we put our windows in on a vertical panel. Sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, I mean, not everything happens vertically. There's a certain amount of the process that happens horizontal, and then it tilts up vertical for the remainder of the processes. So flashing happens vertically, window installation happens vertically. So you're absolutely right about that.
And can some of the other prefabricators sort of give us their perspectives on these things?
Yeah, why don't if Bill or Thomas, you're ready to go.
So our house was actually manufactured vertically, but that was mainly due to shop size and the layout of the shop. So they put the CLT panels into the shop vertically, applied the wood fiberboard vertically. So starting obviously with the lowest row, and installed the windows.
So it can be done.
It can be done, yeah.
Again, it does depend on the factory. I don't know if Bill, if you're with us still, if you wanted to chime in, but I think you might agree with Paul when it comes down to manufacturing some of these machines.
Bill left, but Martin is still here from Blueprint
Thanks, Martin.
I agree with Paul. We do the same thing. The framing, the sheeting, the insulation actually is done horizontal. And then we turn into vertical, and that's where all the MEP and the window install and the flashing happens. So it's gravity, it's also limitation on the equipment, and also easier because we are not only framing 8-foot walls, we are framing 10, 12, 14-foot walls. And if you have different heights, your machines operate easier horizontal than vertical.
Mm-hmm. So I want to say one last thing about Travis and the straw bales, and that is that he didn't mention this, but it's really important. The fire rating properties on those straw bales that they manufacture is amazing. So if you're looking for so talk to Travis about his fire prevention properties on those panels they make.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right, Jeff. Travis owes you beer next time he sees you.
I'm done.
Oh, good. No good. All right. Steve Hasler had a question. Steve, you still with us?
I am. I don't remember which question it was, though.
You had a bunch of them, but go ahead.
I think I was interested in geologic, what the radius would be for delivery.
Okay. Alan, over to you.
We say our build territory is the Northeast US. And, you know, we could talk about going farther, but it just comes down to cost and getting the crew there and all of that.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Do you have another question, Steve? Or are you happy with just that one for now?
I'm good with that right now.
Perfect. Okay, great. Then we're over to, Chris from San Rafael.
Was that my question about prefab factories?
You had a few of them. Go ahead and fire with one, Chris. I got Mary helping out with questions, so I don't know exactly. I just know you were in the queue next.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, it'd be real interesting to be able to tour a factory. And I don't know if there are any in the Bay Area, because I can imagine this is not exactly the cheapest place to have such an operation. But does anyone know of any?
Well, there was one in Vallejo that I know of, but it went out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few that have gotten COVID. But Chris, we'll try to get you some new ones, but some of these other ones do target your market as well. So again, I don't know if anyone's focused on California yet, but I'm sure Chris,
I mean, I know they do builds out here, but the actual fabrication would be really interesting and educational to see. So if anyone's doing that out this way, and I'd love to get a chance to go see it.
I went on a tour in Oakland of a company called Mighty Buildings. It's 3D printed buildings. The building materials, as you can imagine, are different from the ones that we see here for the most part, but you can go tour that factory. It was a very interesting tour.
Okay, I'll hit you up, Mary, for info. Thank
Chris,
you.
And I think we're lucky too, is as we learn through COVID, again, we can have a presentation like we had tonight where individuals can show off their manufacturing needs, and so you could just stay where you are and teleport to all these lovely sites. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Chris. Next in line was Shannon.
I'm remembering to unmute. Thank you, Sean. Thanks to everyone for the presentation. That was amazing. Learned a lot, and I'm super psyched to try all of them now. My first question was for Ilka. She gave a presentation about a project I was involved in, but I was curious about the testing that occurs in the factory, especially during the window installation.
Yes, hi. So I don't know if Martin wants to chime in as well, but I mean, it's not really that there's a testing chamber that's set up to test every single window that is being installed. But when we did the installation of the windows of your projects, we actually had representatives from Zola and from Ziga there who really just kind of got into the details of how to tape everything and, you know, to make it all fit and airtight. And when we did the blower door test for your building, it was pretty clear that there's no leakage around the windows there.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
The other question that I had was for Alan. I really liked the fact that they're doing the deep energy retrofits as well. He mentioned that they did a cost comparison with that case study, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
We didn't do a cost comparison per se from like a conventional retrofit to a passive house retrofit. We didn't do a lot in the feasibility study about pricing, but that would come later. It was more about, is this building structurally sound? Could we renovate it with panels on the exterior? And that we found out would be possible. So it's still, yeah, it's in development for sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shannon. Harvey, you had a whole bunch of questions, so maybe I'll give you two.
I don't know if I can only do two.
Well, I'm giving you two, my friend. I'm working on it.
Everyone, a great presentation. Mine were just were really basic. One was, do you offer training? Because it's not really conventional for some of the trades, as I'm sure people have been writing in the chat. And the other one was just to guarantee air tightness, and what are the proprietary assemblies that you have, or wall assemblies, that when the panels are going together, that it really does, it's not a lot more work. I think David, you had said that you recommend maybe an exterior air barrier, but just curious on those two fronts. Thank you, Sean. And this is open to anyone who would like to speak about it. It wasn't directed to anyone specifically. It was I was following after Jeff Roden's kind of deal.
Yeah, I could respond to that one, Harvey. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Anybody? Yes. Yeah, we are definitely offering training and want to be, off and on-site training as much as possible, and really just get this system out there in the hands of builders and developers, architects. So please reach out to us on that front. And what we use is a vapor or an air barrier from 475 typically, or something similar. And it's just very standard, way to do things if you were building any other high performance building.
I'll just chime in there because I see a lot of air and water seals tried out through development and also in projects. I'd say that, it's where prefab has failed in the past is where the joints have been, with air leakage or water leakage, especially in larger buildings. And so it is something not to be taken lightly. And with the tapes and gaskets and sealant joints and silicone strips or, curtain wall type joints, they're all different. They all pros and cons. And it's about, as the panels go together, is it either self-sealing or do you have to get there to do a transition? One of the hardest transition is horizontal to vertical joint if you have multiple panels. If you can access the inside of that versus the outside. So there's not one best system. I'd say that, you got to look at each of where you can get to for the seal. There's lots of great tapes, lots of great seals that can be used. It's just all about continuity and getting access to it on site.
And can I jump in about the training? I'm hoping that the dogs who have been wrestling next to me are going to be quiet for a second so I can answer. But, you know, Be Public, like I talked about, is kind of different about our approach, and training and onboarding both architects and designers is, of course, key. But really onboarding builders and supporting these local ecosystems. So we're very fortunate that we're partnering. I put it in the chat. Our manufacturing is done at Collective Carpentry, Go Team. And we also have installing teams that have experience installing to Passive House standard panelized that we utilize. And our program with local builders is the first build we really ask that our approved install crews do that install, but that they tap somebody on the local crew that really is there to learn, so that the subsequent build with Be Public, there's somebody who's been trained and we can approve to install the next one. So it's really depending on the builder, depending on the projects they're building with us, that it's a sort of a stepping down in a way so that we're really training those local crews to do the install all the way through finish on our project. So that's key to what we're doing. And of course, we're very fortunate that a lot of the builders we're connected to have done panelized that are already sort of in this community of Passive House practitioners. But we're working with some great projects, some really interesting rural locations where there's nobody in sight that's ever done panelized or prefab. So it's great to bring those builders into the fold, as it were, and get them trained and ready to do serial projects with us.
Is this like, it's interesting, just as an aside, is that we're taking a jump from conventional, or if you want to call it obsolete construction practices, jumping over to Passive House. And now with this, we're jumping into something new. There's some massive leaps of knowledge and experience in marketing that people are going to need. But great presentation. Thank you guys for answering my question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Harvey, it's a good point, right? You're bringing up Passive House, prefab, and then some of us are also looking at the low embodied carbon. So that's 3 that we're tackling at moving the typical platform frame construction to this higher level. It's pretty fantastic that everyone's putting on their thinking hats to make this happen. It's exciting times for all. So in the queue, Harvey, you're happy? Come back and I'll get you a couple more in the after.
Oh no, that was great. I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you, Sean.
That was all good. Next we have Scott Kennedy. Scott, you there? While he finds his mute button, Scott's also going to be featured on our happy hour on Wednesday. And if Scott has taken a phone call, then we are going to move on. I know Derek had to leave with us, and so the next one was Annegret. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. You had a question.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, I saw so many assemblies with wood fiberboard. I mean, I'm familiar with it from Germany, but you know, that's always kind of a bit of a challenging aspect of all these wall assemblies, that you have to get the stuff from Europe. So, you know, I find it, you know, depending on where you are in the United States or Canada, and I mean, Canada has so much wood, it seems a bit redundant to bring that material into this market. So I guess I know the advantages, and I heard, and now someone had a comment that there is a factory being set up in Maine, which would be closer than going over to Europe. Maybe someone can speak to that. I'm not sure.
Yep, I know a little bit about that. It was a spin-off of GoLogic, and it's called GoLab. And GoLab has a mill and is, you know, in the process of starting production, which will hopefully be in the next year or two. So it'll be rigid wood fiber. It'll be a wood fiber bat. It'll also be a blown-in product. So keep your eyes out for that. Really excited about getting that produced. I mean, we are currently importing wood fiber from Poland, and yeah, it's would love to have a domestic source. But it's still such a great product, and as I think Travis may have said, you know, the shipping of a product like that, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense, but carbon-wise, it's still carbon negative when we get it and put it into a house. So for that reason, you know, we used to use mineral wool, and someone asked about that. It's like mineral wool has really high embodied energy in the production. So other than, you know, besides being kind of nasty to work with, we moved over to the wood fiber.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people, I mean, I'm an architect in Ottawa, Canada, so, you know, there's just not that much knowledge about that project other than in the passive house community, you know, like people don't really know it and understand it. So I think there's also, you know, all of us, it's a lot of work to be done to, I mean, I work in mainstream architecture. I don't really have the chance to do much passive house yet. I hope that changes, but so there's a lot of education.
I think the nice thing with wood fiberboard is you can get it in any size, in any thickness, and any density. It's very easy to assemble and fasten to the structure, and you can play with your R values or properties.
I know. I mean, I'm from the Black Forest originally, so I mean, it gets produced there. So I mean, I'm familiar with it.
There you go.
It's not me you have to convince. It's
okay.
Well, no, and that's a good point. I mean, when you think of in North America, speaking out of Vancouver, you know, 10 years ago, we didn't have, you know, any passive houses, and now we have almost one popping up a month. But we also had, you know, 5 or 6 certified window manufacturers now. So again, we're all eager to move this whole movement forward 1,000 times. I mean, I would love that every house is being built as passive house, but that dream's going to have to be, you know, have to wait a few more years. But when it comes to these other products, they will have to get made here locally. Just the demand for it needs to be there, and then of course stay at the factory. So you will definitely see some more of these locally made products sooner than we think. But again, thanks, Alan, for giving us an update on where they're at. That's great. And next question is Christina. Oh, I'm just checking to see if Christina is still here. And oh, there we go.
I'm going to jump in and say that was because I think it's a question that a lot of people might be interested in. How do you run the electrical inside the CLT panels?
So I guess, Thomas, we'll fire that one to you.
Yeah, so we ran the CRT, or the electrical, we router the boxes for shallow electrical boxes. And then we have drillings from the bottom, or if it's an interior wall, which is a little bit thinner, we have channels all the way, which we cover later with a strip of CLT or strip of wood. Yeah. But it's definitely, it takes a little bit more brain power and pre-planning if you leave the CLT exposed, that's for sure. And then we usually, so this is how we go vertically. Horizontally, we usually have a floor buildup, strapping where we run the wiring and plumbing and water lines and ventilation lines or ventilation pipes.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Mary, for jumping in. The next one, I think Marcel had a few questions. Marcel, go ahead and pick one.
Hey, Sean. Thanks, guys. Great presentation, everyone. Just the whole discussion with building officials. I know with an open panel, there's ways to get around with that, but as some of you explored to do closed panels, adding more to the panel and maybe getting certification off the wall assembly from the building officials within your factories, like in Canada with PCSA approval. I don't know how that works in the States.
Who wants to start with that?
I could maybe start off with that. Yeah, the workaround that we have at the moment is that we have a structural engineer on staff who signs off on the structural buildup, and then we run the gauntlet with local authorities where they don't understand that they need to be fully signed off. So we get lucky somewhere, and then in some cases where when the building authority knows exactly what's going on, we get the architect to issue a Schedule B that signs off on the envelope. And we've just had one in Delta where the inspector didn't even accept that. So we're actually now looking to get CSA approval for our factory. And once we get CSA approval, we can manufacture all of the panels and they have a stamp on them. And that then is a closed panel, which can be shipped to site and is approved by a building inspector.
Is that an expensive and lengthy process to get that approval?
It was expensive and lengthy to try and figure out how they do it because it seems to be a closed shop. But essentially, I've been given the figures of about $10,000 to have our facility inspected. And then every sticker costs 25 cents. And then they come every 3 months, which costs another $4,000. And yeah, so I mean, it's something that we need for the larger multifamily. So we're going to get it anyway. But it is kind of interesting to me as an architect that some of our attempts have just prevailed because of the lack of knowledge of building inspectors. I don't know what other manufacturers do. It's been a bit of a guessing game for me.
Thanks, David.
So I would like to chime in too, because in Pennsylvania, as soon as you have a closed wall, it actually falls under the IH, the Industrialized Housing Authority. So in that case, you actually need someone, a third party, to come into the factory and pretty much look at the panels while they're being manufactured. And this factory has to be, they have to engage into a contract with this kind of specific third party agency. And then once they kind of start the process, they're gonna review drawings, and there's a lot of information that they want to see from the structural engineer, and then they kind of put a stamp on it, and then the local building inspector is going to accept that. But then there's a whole kind of on-site or in the factory inspection during manufacturing of the panels, and then they also going to get a little sticker that says approved. Some townships or some inspectors are a little bit more lenient with that, but even the definition of what is a closed panel is a little I don't know, it's not very black and white.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcel. And if you missed it last week, Marcel brought some Canadian funk to our Passive House Accelerator construction tech. So thanks again for that, Marcel.
Nice. Could I jump in on that one, Sean?
Go ahead, Travis.
Real quick. So yeah, our currently, the panels don't have any kind of certifications in the U.S., but the Cocon system is so rigorously tested that we have a lot of different results for that we can represent to local building inspectors, and we also have an engineer that we work with currently for the northeastern states in the U.S. And looking to expand those relationships so that we can make it more viable and working towards the testing that's required to certify them here.
I'll just add that Canadian in particular, but also U.S. codes don't make it easy to bring in great products. So we are the ones that get calls when manufacturers want to use new insulation membranes. They're all great products, but the authority having looks to put up a lot of barriers to innovation. So happy to help you out, but the simpler you can make it and the better you can explain it, then I find better success there. But we try to avoid just stamping things just to get things approved. You got to make sure it works, obviously. The big thing with high rises too, I mean, especially you're starting to see in your larger projects is, there's full scale performance mock-ups where you're going to demonstrate air, water, structural tightness, fire. And so once you've gone through that full rigor of testing, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, then hopefully you get accepted. But it's a long, expensive path to get there. So keep doing what you're doing, pushing ahead, educating the authorities. That's all you can do.
Excellent, Grant. Thanks for adding that in. I didn't do this earlier, but other prefab companies that are listening in, say hello in the chat. I saw a few of them, so make sure you say hello. Also know that I saw Lauren Kelly, the business manager development for NA Structures. She's out there, so maybe we'll get him on the next next show. So thanks for everyone for perfect. Thanks, Lauren. How are you doing today?
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
It's been my pleasure, and I've enjoyed a lot of the content, and I look forward to having an opportunity to contribute in the future.
Perfect.
Hey, Lauren, you just want to say where you're based, just so people can find you?
Oh, certainly. Sorry, I did do that in a group chat thing earlier, but our factory is based in Quebec, Canada. I am based just north of Toronto, and we do business in 14 countries.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate it. And again, yeah, if anyone else is there, make sure you say hello so we all can connect with you. So keep going on with the questions. We have Craig Stevenson is up next. And I'll try to update the chat because you've got Craig and then Christian, Scott. Just checking to see if Craig's still.
I think Craig's question got answered. So.
Okay. All right, moving along. Christian K from LA. Mary, do you have Christian's question by chance?
You know, it's similar to what we were just talking about.
Okay.
He asked, when working with pre-assembled panels, how does the site inspection work with the local building inspectors? For example, sheathing, nailing inspection when already covered and not accessible anymore.
Gotcha. So yeah, I think we dove into that. Okay, we'll keep going here. Scott H is next. Just checking to see if Scott's still with us. Yeah,
I can jump in because I think this question is general enough. Do you use FSC wood? And I don't remember at the time which company he was talking about, but it's a good question, I think, for everybody if they want to answer it, or anybody who wants to.
I think most are using traditional, but anybody else using it or adding it in when a client's asked for it?
So we as Holtz Rum typically ask for using, you know, FSC certified wood, and Blueprint Robotics definitely does that. So it's important for us because we've done some analysis on, you know, embodied carbon footprint, and whenever you use these calculators, it's kind of interesting because in general, you can't really claim your carbon you know, for wood if you don't use any kind of sustainably grown wood. So that is really important for us.
Great, thanks for jumping in, Ilka.
That's a new component of our business. That's part of the growth.
Oh, sorry, not sure if someone's talking or not, but moving along. Laura Tugwell had a question. Laura, you still there?
Yes, I sure am. I think this has been touched on a little bit this evening, and if I understand, basically, okay, so let me start over again. My question is about any California or prefab passive house California or companies in California, and I believe that there is, well, Public says that they can service this area, North America, specifically zones 2 through 7, which includes California. And I guess their PDX prefab is in Oregon, which is not that far away, especially when you compare it to like most things seeming to be on the East Coast. But I'm wondering if there are any existing prefab passive house companies that that are in California as of now.
I think we talked about this a little bit, and that none of us knew of any. And as being with Public, I'll answer, and I think it was answered in the chat that we are delivering to California.
Okay.
Manufacturing in BC, so it's an easy route for us, but no knowledge of anybody manufacturing locally yet. Soon, I'd give it about 6 months.
Nice, I like
Somebody
that.
on this call will be moving to California to serve you.
Yes, please. That and like I fully agree about the is it the Gutex wood fiber boards. We actually did a project at the company that I work with out in Carmel Valley that incorporated those lovely Gutex boards through 475. But unfortunately, they did have to be shipped all the way from Europe, which is really ridiculous because our trees are just as good as theirs, I believe. So and just like so many things in this really crunchy time right now, it seems like it's actually expediting a lot of growth. So that's a good thing. Yeah, thank you very much, you guys.
Thanks, Laura.
Also available to deliver to the panels to California and anywhere in the US or Canada.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Laura, it's interesting too. I'll just, we're all growing the markets and everywhere we're at. The other thing that's happening too is you have some prefab builders that have just been doing, 2x6 and plywood and truss, like more of the component manufacturers. They soon will be jumping into this market and providing an opportunity there. So there's a lot of things changing from people that are starting off, people that are well established, and people that are going to maneuver to take on this market share. So. And as soon as you asked, Laura, there's a bunch of people that jumped in the chat. So I wouldn't be surprised next year you'll have an answer. And as Eddie said, within 6 months. So it's pretty exciting. Things are moving fast.
That's fantastic. And these days, 6 months goes by pretty quickly.
Well, for those that have been hanging out with the Passive House Accelerator and our happy hour, this week is 40 weeks that we've been doing that event. So I tell you, 40 weeks goes by pretty quick. All right, Laurie, thank you. We're going to move over to Rebecca. Rebecca, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Go ahead. I think you had a couple questions.
Thanks everyone for putting together this summit. This has been really informative for me, a newer person in this passive house space. And my question was just about the suitability of panels for including on a retrofit project. So kind of, putting on top of an existing wood structure. And I'm mostly interested, this is for a current project. So panels that would be available in the Vancouver market. The project's actually in Burnaby.
Great stuff, Rebecca. I know we talk about, energy sprung and the market, like we're mostly talking about new builds, but once we all can figure out a way of dealing with the retrofit market, I mean, we're going to all have about 10 different factories. So it's big. Does anyone want to jump in on things they're working on? David, is this something you want to talk about first?
Yeah, we've worked with a company to look at prefab retrofits, and the panels do suit just because they can be clipped onto existing structures. One of the structures we looked at in Vancouver was a mid-rise concrete, and they were very suited to installing the panels to the exterior and being vapor open as well. There's a great benefit there in not kind of capturing or trapping any moisture. I know, yeah, it's a little trickier, but I think there's a huge market, especially in the West End and areas like that in Vancouver.
Yeah, actually, that's what I found is most of them seem to be more applicable to concrete, to applying to a concrete slab, but not necessarily to like a wood frame structure, like a house.
Yeah, the problem when we looked at the timber structure, it's just you run into all the new code requirements for structure. So although it stood for 60 years, the code has changed, so we can't clip it readily onto it. So
Logic had something. Can Mr. Gibson speak to that?
Well, I was going to say I think Canadians are a bit farther along than we are in panelized retrofits. I've talked to a number of people. You might want to look up the Pembina Institute because I know they're doing some work on that. The U.S., particularly New York State, got on board with the whole energy sprung thing, and they've tried to promote it and do sort of contest for projects. To my knowledge, nobody's actually done a panelized retrofit yet. They've done a bunch of sort of foam over masonry building retrofits. But we did this feasibility study on a 3-unit apartment building, and I hope it goes forward next year because we'll try out a panelized approach. I mean, I've done lots of conventional deep energy retrofits, the conventional way, but I'm much more excited about panelizing it.
What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing?
Oh, I mean, you have to get a project and you've got to do it and you got to figure it out. It's like somebody's got to be willing to do this new thing and have you try it. Otherwise, I think technically it's not that hard. I mean, you have to do a laser scan of the building so you can generate a 3D model and then accurate shop drawings, and you have to get the structural stuff worked out, and then you have to build the panels and figure out how to attach them to the building and go from there. I mean, I don't see it as being, codes, I could see that being an issue. I don't see it technically as being all that difficult.
From a design perspective, I'll jump in on Alan. I really appreciate that. I would love to see the energy sprung and the fabrication movement get that retrofit piece solved. But even with the new construction we did, this was the first time we used a panelized system. And in exploring the different materials and trying to find the right manufacturer, it really helps to have a team that is going to also understand Passive House, also understand how to look at your climate specific requirements and how breathable you need to be in that panel. And then, also being able to weigh different options in the panels and different manufacturers is really key. So I think, Ilka, maybe you could speak a little bit to that. And then also, if you're a designer and you're looking at doing this process, the phasing piece. So we're used to doing phases of typical architecture where it ends in CA. And CA now moves when you do panelization into CDs. So you really have to back it all up and include that time in your design and your soft costs. So Ilka, I know that's a lot of information in 2 questions.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with like shifting the timeline. And I'm coming from the architecture side, and I was on the architecture side for the first project that we did actually with Blueprint Robotics. And what we realized as an architecture firm is we actually should have set up our contract a little differently, because we didn't know that actually the construction administration kind of shifts to the front, because you're virtually building the building up front. And so there's a lot of kind of working through just kind of design challenges up front, but you have the chance to do so, right? Because later on, you're just kind of stuck with what's on site, and then your construction administration piece kind of is pretty much just like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Like, it's problem solving. While if you're moving it to the front, you actually have the capability of kind of implement your design goals a little bit better than just dealing with what's already there. So I would definitely, and whenever we take on a project, we do talk to the architects and say, there is, we're not saying it's definitely not less work for the architect, but it shifts a little bit, because there's a lot of upfront just kind of working virtually through the building and just kind of looking through drawings, but then that eases the way into construction and administration by quite a bit. Yeah. And
nothing
then
like shop drawings to see if your design works.
Yeah, but you have the control then, and I think that's what I liked being as the architect. And I made that the statement before as being a woman in the field. I think that is definitely a piece that kind of gives you control on the architecture side, but also now being more on the construction side, of just having a tool that you can communicate with, and that gives you somewhat of a voice.
Excellent. This is a great discussion, and we can definitely carry it on in the afterwards. But first, we're just going to bring it over to Zach to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, and thanks everybody. This is really fantastic. I want to say thank you to the summit sponsors, of course, for making tonight possible. So big thank you to Vaproshield and to RDH Building Science for their support tonight. I also want to just remind folks that we have a couple of, and are you able to see my screen? I'm always nervous about that.
Yes, all good, Zach.
Okay, good, thank you. So tomorrow, join us for Construction Tech Tuesday with David Arnott of Tag Panels to dive deeper into his process. It should be lots of fun. And then on Wednesday, join us for Global Passive House Happy Hour with Scott Kennedy and Gessa Zellerman of Cornerstone Architecture talking about the Heights project. And finally, if you aren't yet, I wanted to let you know that we have a Passive House podcast. And if you're not subscribed yet or listening, please check out this week's episode with Julie Torres Moskowitz. I'll share links to all this in the chat. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. There are still about another 7 or 8 questions to be answered. So panel, if you need to run, again, thank you very much for introducing all of us to you and answering questions for the last couple hours. So thank you very much. For those that are going to depart, again, thank you for joining us. And again, we appreciate it. So Mary, you had another question to kick us things off with.
Well, I just wanted to put this out as a general question to any of the panelists that are still around. Just looking into the next year or two, what would you need going forward? What would make the biggest difference to your business growing? And what are your expansion plans, if you have any, for the next year or two?
All right, big question to kick off the overtime. Who wants to start?
Local wood fiberboard manufacturer and more CLT manufacturers.
Okay. Working on it. So again, we've got Alan and Geo. Actually, sorry, Alan, the new company, I just saw it as Timber HP,
Timber HP is what the product is called.
All right, so we got that one in the process. And I'm sure there might be more coming along. I know Kliznikov down from in BC is starting some CLT. So again, the more the merrier. Anyone who wants to start up a company, it's only about $20 to $40 million, but just ask the bank, ask your mom and dad, and get this thing started. We need it. There's a demand for it.
Well, I'm gonna expand on a somewhat smaller scale, but I'm gonna go from our current space, hoping to build about 20,000 square feet next year to use for expansion of our panelization production. So that's my plan.
Excellent. That's great. Okay, going bigger. This is good.
Okay. Yes, Sean. So Ilka Cassidy has been ramping up their production. They're really maxing out there, but they have a plan to turn everything over to robotics, or a fair amount of it, and also start production lines in each of the countries that they're currently working in. And so we would like to do that relatively soon here. I think what we need going forward in this country is just more market demand and awareness about the availability of this as an option, and connections to communicate the importance of working with the industry to start thinking positive about the product.
Great, thanks, Travis. And just a note here, I saw Chris and I saw Jamie from Sukup. So as these company grows, we also have some great manufacturers locally. So you can definitely go to Wyman or Bowtech, but we also have Sukup America here to offer equipment. So it's good to see things available in the support world as well. So thanks to them for being here tonight and answering some of the questions. It's great. David, do you want to talk about your 2021 plans?
Yeah, it's just managing growth, and we're in a lucky position in the sea to sky where I think we have about 7 or 8 projects for every time slot. So it's trying to manage that growth. So we've already tripled in size, and we'll be getting another facility in the summer, moving towards some multifamily. And then being an architect, I would just love if the building code was a little bit more flexible. It's a real not only do we have to educate the clients, and then sometimes we get educated clients, we have to educate the building authorities. And that's a huge barrier to entry for any company who's trying to grow as fast as we all are. You got a product ready to go out the door, and then you get, you know, walls put up with building codes. So I think that's a slow process, but maybe some documents from RDH, or I know Chris Hill's working on some stuff, anything that we can have as a piece of paper to wave in front of someone's face to say it's okay, that'd be great.
Excellent. Thanks, David. Paul, what about you guys over at Build Smart?
Well, to be candid with you, I don't relish having to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Let's put it this way: if the elephant does not control the Senate, we will have a lot of funding to build Passive House with. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Eddie, how is what's the plans for Be Public for 2021?
Yeah, it's going to be quite a year. I mean, I think Paul mentioned we may have some great incentives and a lot of change coming. You know, we're just hauling as fast as we can, and we're really fortunate that the folks who are drawn to this work are sort of all in. And I mentioned it in the presentation. You know, those local builders are really important to us. We have direct clients who are designing their own Be Public houses. You know, it's the envelope is predicted, it's set, but everything else can be designed around it. So we've got clients all across the country designing, and we need those local builders, because part of what's sustainable and what makes this interesting is what happens in the field, right? Like you can clad it with whatever you want, whatever roof line, but that needs to be a regional approach. So those partners in the field who understand what it is and really want to partner and add to the process is who we're looking for. You know, we're really excited about the design studios. Shannon's question, I should have jumped in for, you know, onboarding studios. We have sort of an hour lunch and learn, and when we walk people through, like, what is it all about? What are the components? What are the dimensions? What are we talking about? You can see when an architect goes, they lean into those details, and they're like, hey, wait, it's not, you haven't just thought about the panels, you're thinking about the attachment to the foundation. No, you've detailed 7 different foundations. What? Right? So like taking the time to talk one-on-one with studios and with practitioners to see how we serve them. And this goes back to Shannon's question. You know, we've done a lot of discovery in this last year. How do you work? And, you know, talking to studios about how do they start a project? How do they put Passive House or high performance on the table? And we've developed tools, so you can download our SketchUp tools, and you have all the whole library of components, and you can build your own envelope and literally play with the Legos. But I've joked with people, if you're still drafting by hand, I'll send you a pencil and we can talk it through. Like, we'll meet you wherever you are, because it's really fun. Everybody works differently, and it should be creative. It should be iterative. So we've got a lot of just, you know, great meetings ahead and a lot of beautiful builds coming up. We've had snow. I'm in New Mexico. We've had snow. We have an install going up maybe on January 4th. So everyone, okay, it's the desert. We can't wish that there's not going to be snow. That's a horrible thing to say, but we'll be really excited to see some stuff get up and be sharing those projects. You know, it's been 2020, people. Let's move it over to January, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, I think we're all looking for another 16 days to flip that calendar and to a better time. Ilka, I don't think I gave you an opportunity to comment about what you guys are up to. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, so we're definitely excited about the next projects. We have one in Philadelphia coming up, and I just wanted to do a big shout out to Macht Architecture and our local builders, Hansen Fine Building, and we're excited about that. What we are also excited about starting to work with Stolz Timber in Montana. because I wanted to jump in too earlier. So right now they're still importing their CLT, but they are planning on producing at some point as well. So, and we are actually working on prototyping for developers right now, and it's really exciting. We are also excited along all these like kind of project to develop our sim model, because we do see a lot of potential in modeling that way. And, you know, creating kind of user interfaces between us and the builder and the architects to kind of really streamline and get our partner David to work on software.
Excellent. Graham, I don't have you on my screen. Shoot, did Graham leave? Oh, you're there.
Here.
Yeah, Graham, what do you see given the services that you guys are doing? You know, how do you guys plan on growing, and what are some of the things that you guys are involved in?
It's exciting times. I think, you know, and the part of the larger discussion is, you know, a lot of the industry is being pushed to prefabricated panels, but also volumetric modular. So there's, you know, we're only talking about prefabricated panels here today. But there's a big opportunity, and the market's driving it that way. It's just, you know, cost and moving labor to where you can afford to, you know, build it. Right, you can build a Vancouver building for Squamish prices, right? That's the that's the dream, right, David? And I think that, and you get to live in Squamish too. You don't have to even go to Vancouver. So, but what we're seeing though in the larger buildings is the lack of solutions is breaking a number of these projects financially. To get to, you know, our 30 to 40 effective, you know, non-combustible walls, or it's a real challenge. It's a lot of insulation, you know, it's real details on the thermal bridging. And, you know, most of these systems, you know, we're talking $100 a square foot, you know, plus or minus $50 at least, or usually plus on the cladding side. So it's, you know, it's a big cost item, you know, it's competing with curtain wall, but a way better performance. So, you know, that's why we've been pushing it and trying to get, you know, players like, you know, Element 5 and Katera to do bigger and bigger buildings. And it's exciting, you know, Sidewalk Labs is, you know, really pushing this as well. So there's going to be some big players here. And there's a huge opportunity. It's a big pie, and there's a lot of slices for everyone here. So it's exciting.
Absolutely. Again, and then thanks for being a sponsor for tonight. We appreciate that. And
No
so
problem.
again, you know, we talk about that pie, and I think what's nice about what everyone said, and Aaron, we'll go to you too. But even with all of these different points, is everyone looks like 2021 is going to be a growing year, which is pretty exciting. Aaron, what would you want to comment to from Vaproshield? And thanks again for being a sponsor tonight. Sorry, Aaron, I put you on the spot.
Sure. Oh, no problem. I was just sitting down on my laurels there. My healthy stuff. Yeah, so Vaproshield we've been pursuing mass timber and panelization and modular for many years now, and so as the industry is growing, that's something that we have matured with, and we have a great staff of technical team and field representatives that are constantly out doing training and mock-ups and helping to grow business for everyone. And we focus on durable, you know, building envelope systems, and we do it a little bit differently than some of the passive house approaches, in that our airtight layer, we're pushing outboard a little bit more with the self-adhered membranes. But with larger buildings, that tends to be the approach, and that's what we've done. And we've done a lot of both wood and metal, and a lot of modular as well. And so it's you know, we'll continue down that road, and you know, we're actually getting more into, we're working on our life cycle assessments as well. And so getting into our carbon and optimizing our materials for that also. And we've done a lot with the healthy materials side in the last few years as well. And so that's another area where we would like to see more and more disclosure in the industry and transparency also.
Thanks, Aaron. Sorry, I was just trying to get a question queued up. I believe Roger Cooney is still with us. Roger, I was trying to give you the heads up. You had a question, you know, you put in about 40 minutes ago. You still up?
I was just taking a nap over here. And actually, this was a pretty basic question, but it gave me an opportunity to give a shout out to Travis, if he's still hanging around. Are you there, buddy?
Yeah, what's up, Roger? Good to see you.
How are your legs today? After we were like hiking for our turns the last couple days, and we must have burned a gazillion calories, and so
Yeah.
we could drink with impunity at this point. So cheers.
Cheers.
It's getting a little late on the East Coast. I think.
Yeah, it's a good time. Happy to see some snow up here.
Yeah, it's coming, man. We got some today, and there's some in the forecast, and so if you don't want it in the desert, send it to the Northeast because we could use them. Shout out to Oliver Klein too, Sean. 475, because he and I have been hanging out together a little bit here and there too. Last time I saw him was with Scion in Southern Vermont, so good to see him, and I love the work you guys are doing. And I gotta say to sponsors who have got their stuff on the Declare website, who have gone out and done the work to make something healthy for human beings and other living things on the planet. Big deal. Big shout out for that kind of work. Love it. Graham, you already answered my question, and it wasn't baiting it. It's just gave me an opportunity to say hello and appreciate the work you're doing. There's a deeper dive on like all this stuff goes together, and these materials. Isn't it funny how everything's coming full circle back to wood?
Or natural products. Yeah.
Natural products, and so to me, it's like those components that aren't wood fiber. What's the lifespan and those kinds of things, and we don't have to get wonky at this hour.
Yeah.
But it's like, I prefer to call the angels as being in the details, and I'm working for a general contractor that built 2 living buildings at the same time, and so that's fully certified. That's our kind of little feather in the cap, and it's like, how long does this stuff last? Is it 100 years? Is it 200 years? So this isn't a throwdown, but how do we get the foam out, and how do we transition, and how do we take it to scale? And we're doing a lot of smaller stuff, so how to bring the dollars out, how to bring the money down, and where's the affordability for those folks who aren't very well heeled, and if we're going to go into a new year, let's do it. And the whole equity piece, it's really important stuff. And who's building those things?
Yeah.
What's their living wage? And it's not easy. So that's my little soapbox. That's it. It was a little too heavy for this hour, but there it is. Thanks.
All good, Roger. Thanks for joining us again. Some good points you brought up.
Travis, let's get on the hill, wax them up, buddy, because we're going ripping. There's powder. There's powder day. Yeah. No front to the powder day except for you.
Hitting it.
All right. See you out there.
All right, Roger. Thanks. Yeah, no, some good points, Roger. Again, we're trying to do a lot, and I mean that's why again these summits help out, is to educate and bring people together and collaborate and talk about the successes we're doing, the failures, so we can grow and scale. So. No, very, very good points. I'm just going to check to see if Jason is still with us. I see about 3 or 4 more questions in the queue. Mary, there might be more that I've missed, but Jason,
Hey.
when?
Hey, Sean.
There we go. How are you? Great.
Doing great.
You got a question? What?
Yeah, I do have 3 questions, but we'll see how much time we have.
All right.
Specifically for Graham at RDH, from the consultant side, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. How would I assemble a rain rack large enough to test the window and charge it with enough pressure on site? That's kind of a necessary thing to do in Vancouver, I'd say.
Yep. Forest fires, or forest fighting equipment, I should say, those tanks they make, you can fill those up with water and get a big pump. So testing, so let's go back to the questioning on testing. Factory testing, you can use obviously water in the factory outside or whatever, but on site when you're doing performance mock-up or doing commissioning testing, there's not water when you need it there, especially with prefab, because you're well before anything else. And so you're bringing a tank, you're bringing water, whether it be a water truck, and then you're building a large rack and you're pressurizing with pumps and you're spraying a whole lot of water all over it. So, but
All right.
you know, especially with the bigger buildings, I mean, that's one thing I'd even encourage all the panel manufacturers is, you know, understand how it performs when it gets really wet. I think that's, you know, we're there trying to help the industry, you know, avoid problems with moisture. And, you know, we don't want to see a bunch of prefab companies fail because they had, you know, bad joints or something like that. So try it out. It's easy to do.
Great. That leads into my next question for most of the panelists. What have been your most common failures and why?
All right, Jason's bringing up the big question in the overtime here. Who wants to take that one on? Oh, I see they're jumping on this one, Jason.
I'll prime it. I bet it's to do with their connections.
Graham's giving away the answers, folks.
But I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear some
I have a good one. I have a good one. So we didn't have any real problems with connections, except for when we had a window that crossed over between two systems. That was tricky. And I'd love to hear how everybody, if the panelists are still here from the presentations, how they deal with that kind of detail. And then also, if you're looking back to what Graham was talking about at different systems and pricing, how do you do that without getting pricing fatigue or design fatigue through the project? Because that's real.
No, that's a good point, Shannon. Alan, you happen to be in the middle of my screen. Do you want to talk about some of the biggest failures in your career? No, just kidding. Is there? What are some of the things that you've learned about, as Shannon was saying, is when you've got different connection points and so forth?
Well, I think, are you talking more about big buildings? Like,
well, in some applications too, when you've got different systems come together, I mean, for you guys, you're probably providing the entire shell. You may not be providing, or you might be providing, you know, some of either the glulam or mass timber pieces, and those could have been contracted out from somebody else, or the steel package. And, you know, how do you deal with some of those kind of things where you've got different pieces come together that you may not be part of the scope of work, but the contractor thought you were the scope of work that took care of it?
yeah, I mean, we tend to do it all. Like, we're general contractors, so we are responsible for the entire shell, air tightness, water tightness. It's all under one house, so we just have to do what we need to do to make that all work. You know, and our wall is set up so, you know, we have a WRB over wood fiber, and we flash the windows really, really well, and then we have a really thick rain screen. So just never, you know, knock on wood, other than some roof leaks, we really haven't known about any kind of wall leaks in our facade system. So, you know, make your panels watertight and airtight unto themselves, and make sure you connect them well, which we've done a lot of different ways, and, you know, some have been more successful than others, but we're using gaskets lately, and we think we're getting a good result with that. It's a lot less messy than other systems.
Jason, I'll be fair to the panelists just because they've been at this for, you know, over 2 hours here. You know, what's nice about the Passive House world is the blower door. You know, that level of quality control to come in before the building is turned over to the clients, where you can check it for air leakages, and typically, you know, if it's airtight, it's going to be watertight as well in most applications. No, Graham might disagree with me a little bit on the technical side of that, but for the most part, the blower door is a great part of the quality control before the homeowner takes it on. And I think, Jason, you had a third question?
It's been 2 hours. I'll leave it for other people.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason, for joining. And I think we had John Burrow from Australia. So again, there's a few people that joined us from different continents and with all the different time changes. Thank you for that. John, you still with us? or did he actually go have lunch? Let me just check. Shoot. No, he has left with us.
You can catch John Burrell on the Passive House podcast. I will share a link.
Excellent. Everyone, unless Mary, did I miss anything? But I think that was everybody. Mary's scanning through the cutting and pasting she's done to keep us all together here. Well, unless
I'm not seeing anybody that you're missing, but
yeah. Again, thank you for being the question concierge tonight, Mary. I know it's not an easy task, especially when there's a lot of people tonight. And again, I mean, people are still interested. We still got 90 people that are that have been hanging out with us. It's great. So if anyone does need to leave, please do so. I'll probably stick around for about another 8 more minutes, unless there's anything else. But I know my dinner is getting cold, but I didn't want to leave until we took care of everybody. So thank you for joining us from all across North America. And again, too, I think there's one person from Russia. So it's always neat to see where people join us from. So thank you very much. And I mean, I did see there's this discussions of where do we get prefab products in Australia as well as in the UK. So great that this whole discussion sparking interest across the globe. Again, thanks to Aaron and Graham from sponsoring tonight's show. And for some of you, we will see you tomorrow night. If not, we'll see you Wednesday night. And I'm sure if not, you'll catch one of the various opportunities with the Passive Accelerator, with either the podcast or with Mary's publications in the chat. It's funny, actually, Mary. I thought Jay might be here and bug me about about prefab books, and so I had to pull out some of your books. So I've got a few of yours in my collection here. Some good old ones, you know, Net Zero, California, Passive House Buildings. So can't give those ones away.
oh, and in this one, Passive House in Different Climates, we had the Eco Cocoon in where was that? Anyway, there's the Eco Cocoon project here in Europe.
Excellent. Got to get my hands on that one.
How about Julia Torres Moskowitz's?
That's a good one.
Thanks, everybody. And I'm going to throw up a couple of links here in the chat for further questions to the, there's professional downloads from Eco Cocoon as well as frequently asked questions.
Yes, thanks, Travis, because I had organized all of your websites nice at the end of my notes, and I totally forgot. So for those that are still here, let me just drop that in the chat as well. So at least it's kind of all grouped. The chat was really good tonight, so you might want to save the chat so that all these lovely links you can keep after we wrap things up. And if you need, you know, if you missed any of the stuff, reach out to me. I'll just throw in my info here. And let's keep connecting.
Yeah, we'll have a video recording of this summit available by next week. So keep your eyes open for that.
Thanks,
and
Zach.
we should be able to include the chat stream there too.
Great. All right, everyone. Again, I'll stick around for 5 minutes if there's any last minute questions, but I think we should give the presenters a big round of applause for sticking this out and providing all the fabulous information. And can't wait to see what 2021 brings to you with all these fabulous plans. And, you know, again, I can't wait to actually come to one of your facilities, but the fact that we could do it virtually was pretty cool. How we got to travel across North America from the East Coast, from Kansas City to Santa Fe to either Victoria or Invermere, and then up to Squamish. And so good, glad that we're able to travel pretty easily. So thank you guys for joining us.
All righty.
Thank you.
I think that's it, everyone.
I gotta go.
Again,
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Be
Thanks for
well.
sticking around so long. Appreciate it.
Everyone.
Take care.